big question, but what do you see as the enduring legacy of the conversion of Constantine for good and for ill? Because I appreciate that you show both in your book.
Hmm. Yes, Emperor Constantine, and by the way, in the British Australian tradition, we pronounce it Constantine.
There you go.
Emperor Constantine is a really good case study, partly because so many myths have grown up about him, and I think I maybe 10, 15 years ago was under that cliched impression that really, when Constantine became a Christian, everything went bad because he gave Christians power, he forced Christianity on everyone, and that's where the church lost its real soul and its gospel focus. That simply isn't true, and the sources will not permit that. By the end of the fourth century, so a generation or two after Constantine, that's true. But Constantine at the beginning of the fourth century, no chance. What he did was he let Christianity be legal, fully legal, but he also allowed pagan religion to be legal. He didn't close temples and rip down statues and that sort of thing. His view in the Edict of Milan, a letter that he published throughout the empire, endorsed what we would call religious pluralism. Not at the theoretical level. He was adamant that Christianity was true. He'd come to believe Christianity was true. And I think he really did believe Christianity was true. I don't think it was a political thing. But he said that all people should follow their own will in the matters of religion. And that was a remarkable thing. But what he then did is he gave churches all of the same tax rights and legal rights that already pagan temples and Jewish synagogues and philosophical schools had. And what that meant is suddenly, with the tax breaks that came with that, the church became wealthy pretty quickly after Constantine, because they had a donor base that far exceeded the pagan temples and even the synagogues, let alone the philosophical societies. And people were, schooled in the tradition of Jesus to give their wealth to good. And so the church ended up inheriting land. People could leave their land to the church, and they could leave their land to synagogues too. But people did it on such a scale in Christianity, the church ended up owning a lot of land. But the church used those lands to start farms to grow food for the poor. That's how the church operated. Constantine did some terrible things. He encoded anti-Semitism. Had laws against Jews owning slaves, and Jews who tried to circumcise their slaves were to be executed. And there are some terrible things he did, thinking that he was following the way of Christ. On the other hand, Constantine gave everyone a weekend, a day off a week. Even the poor worker was allowed a day off a week. He modified punishments due to people. Instead of branding on the face, which was a very common Roman law for certain crimes, he insisted that we should never do that to any human being made in the image of God. They were to be branded on the thigh instead. And you might think, well, that's hardly an improvement. But if you were there in say 320 and you said, oh, you've done something very bad, we can either brand you in the face or brand you on the thigh. You're going for thigh for sure. He modified uh, um, divorce and marriage law in favor of women, so that men who frivolously divorced their women um, were seriously punished. And Constantine changed the law so that women could go and take everything the man owned. Right, this was designed to sort of say you can't treat women like that. I mean, we could go on and on. There are lots of things he did that were humanitarian, and he was trying to encode some vision of Christianity in life. Um, and he invited the church to advise him. But even still, in his period, uh, the people were not permitted to jump from the wealthy classes um, into church ministry. That was banned, and the church churches loved that band because the church in this period was quite suspicious of the wealthy and powerful. So they didn't want the wealthy and powerful becoming priests, let alone bishops. And Constantine wrote that into law as well. So there were lots of things in this period, which is sort of 313 to 337, that are positive. And yet, of course, he was still a Roman emperor with hundreds of years of imperial policy to continue enforcing, and by our standards, brutally.